And I'm Allie French, and this is a podcast about individual journeys within wellness and how to navigate it all.
After Allie experienced a cancer diagnosis in her 20s,
and Erica went through a self-love journey, we created a platform to interview real people from all walks of life that have combined all types of practices. From physical wellness to emotional and spiritual, we hear courageous stories and focus on why it's important to share them.
we are both certified integrative nutrition health coaches, and together with our community are learning to live our most purposeful lives by sharing one courageous story at a time.
It takes courage to share these journeys, and by talking about them, we aim to destigmatize the process. We want you to be your own health advocate, feel educated and informed on the latest in health and wellness, and empower you to feel your absolute best.
And because we want to bring forth a wide variety of stories, the opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect our own, but we hope the diverse and varied stories will empower you to make the best choices for your own life. So join us as we and our community share our courageous wellness. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of Courageous Wellness. We have a really in-depth, informative conversation with Izabella Wentz on adrenal dysfunction and her new book, Adrenal Transformation Protocol, that we will get to in just a second. But before we do, we're going to do our weekly updates. And Allie, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. It's interesting. So it's gotten a lot warmer here in LA. And if anybody thinks it's like, oh, if anything to say because it's Los Angeles, it actually doesn't really get warm here until July, usually. Especially I live kind of by the water and it's always cooler and it's very gray in May and June. So it's gotten a lot warmer this past month, and I've been trying to up the amount of movement I have in my day. Like I always prioritize movement. I go on long walks, sometimes go to the gym, but I've been trying to utilize the pool more and go swimming in the evening after work, maybe before dinner, even if it's like a 15-20 minute swim. And I've done it a couple nights this week, and it's so awesome. I'm actually like really sore from it.
Yeah.
But and it's like doing, especially because like, I don't know, my life the last few years and all the work we do with Courageous Wellness is in front of a screen. It's in front of a computer. And I actually got a new like ergonomic kneeling chair too, which is kind of funny. I'm getting used to it, but just to like help support my posture. And but anyway, I wanted to try to incorporate more like just natural movement too in my day. And combat all the sitting that happens. So the evening little bit of extra swimming has been so awesome. And I feel like I'm sleeping like a rock. It's just really great. And then like getting really hungry and coming back and having a big dinner.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just sort of my update from this week because I've done it multiple times, and I'm really just like noticing a difference in how I feel, and my body feels really like sore, but in a good way, because swimming is it's cardiovascular, but it's also resistance with the water, and you're using all these like muscles in your back, and I don't know, it's something new, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, Allie, it's so funny because we didn't talk about this before we started recording, but I've been doing the same thing. Like I've been swimming in the afternoons or evenings, like 3 or 4 times a week the last few weeks. And I'm so sore. I feel it's so mentally good. Like I just feel so good from it, and it's helping. I know I've talked on the podcast over, I guess like over the year and a half that I've had this, but I have like a shoulder injury, and my mobility has never been better actually since I've been swimming. And yeah, it's unbelievable. So I love it. And it's such like fun summer play too. Like we've been talking about in a few recent intros, tapping into your inner child or inner teenager. And like swimming is so a part of that for me. So just so interesting because we didn't talk about this offline, and I didn't realize you've been doing it, and I'm doing it too. So we're kind of in line.
It's really fun. It's really nice. So refreshing too.
Yeah.
And then we're like by our pool, it's a community pool, and there's a hot tub too next to it. And like going to sit in there after, I had to like help my husband move his office like last week, and we wound up doing it ourselves, rented a U-Haul, which was all fine, but it was a lot of like heavy lifting, and I'm like old lady with my back brace on, which is helpful. But just like even going for a swim, working it out, and sitting in the hot tub after really helped after that move too.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
so
it's nice.
cool.
I'm starting to enjoy. It's starting to feel like summer. It's like
Yeah.
summer's gonna come to an end, and it just starts to feel like it here.
Yeah.
But
And September is like the hottest month in Los
yeah,
Angeles, California. Like, I mean, Southern California. I feel like it doesn't get cool until late October, mid-October. So yeah, it's really
it gets really
California,
hot.
Southern California summer now. Um,
Speaking of summer, you have like I think an update.
I do. My update. I'm
I
so
have I haven't
excited.
stopped hearing all about it. So you want to tell
I
everybody?
will. I told Allie does not listen to Taylor Swift or that's just not her music, which is okay. And for our non-Swifty listeners, it's okay. I am the Swifty of the two of us. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. And it's officially Eras tour in Los Angeles. And I am living my best life. I'm in my Eras era. I'm basic as hell, but I love I love it. I'm unapologetically loving it. But it is at time of recording. I'm actually the Ticketmaster wars that were last November when I got these tickets. I think I was in the queue for like 6 hours,
Oh
but
my God.
I got through. I think like 2% of people got through. So feel very grateful. But my tickets are for tomorrow at the time of recording that I got. And I'm going with my sister-in-law, but I love her. And we're getting all dressed up and it's gonna be wonderful. And then at the time of this release, my best friend from childhood, she got tickets and is taking me with her. So I'm going to get to go tonight too. So that's why I'm definitely in my Eras era, and follow along on Instagram because I'm sure by now I will have posted about the Saturday show and I'm going again tonight. So I'm really excited. Tonight's going to be more of like a low key vibe, but at the time of recording, this is like future Erica will have experienced the Eras tour, but I'm so excited. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. I love her music. And, as I've been tapping into this like inner teenager self, it's very in line, I think, with what I'm excited about. So I'm really excited. We have outfits planned and we have friendship bracelets made, and yeah, it's gonna be, I've been waiting for this since November of last year. So I think that explains a lot of my excitement too. But yes, that's like
Yeah,
my only update. I can't believe it's 24 hours away. I've been
that's really
watching, I'm
funny.
one of those, if anyone else is a Swiftie listening, like I've watched like the little live streams on TikTok of the show. And so it's like I'm gonna get to see it IRL.
In real life. That's so
I'm
funny.
excited.
Erica mentioned like I guess the name of a song to me earlier, and I was like, "What's that?" And she's like, "I bet you've heard," and I was like, "I've literally never heard." Like,
Oh my gosh.
I somehow
No,
have avoided it.
I was like, we need
Um,
to do a poll and see. Cause Allie and I were like,
I'm like,
what do you
"Who
think? Like the
likes her?" And she's like,
breakdown of our
"Everybody."
listeners, like everybody likes Taylor
I'm like,
Swift.
"Nobody I know likes her." It's so funny.
She's our musical theater New Yorker. You know what it is? It's funny because I think, have you heard, maybe you won't agree with this, but what just came to my mind is, in like a friendship, there's like a black cat and a golden retriever. And I
The
think,
black cat and you're the golden retriever.
yeah, I think, I
Yeah,
think,
that's easy
I
to
think,
that's
I
easy to
think that
decipher.
might be it. It's like, I didn't
Totally.
realize it until right now. I was like, oh, I'm going to
Oh,
send you some of those TikToks, but I think you're the black cat. But you're
100.
just
I
New
haven't
York.
heard that, but like the second I haven't heard that thing, and I guess I don't really spend time on TikTok.
You
That's the
don't.
thing. But when you said that, I was like, oh, easy, easy peasy. Um,
Yeah. It's
so
so
funny.
it is. And the last thing I'll say is, you know what I think it is too? Like I'm definitely more of like the pop culture
Mm,
girl of the two of us. But and I'm also like the astrology girl of the two of us, more in depth. But it's so interesting because I am a Libra sun, and low vibe Libra is like gossipy and all of that stuff. And I think my like love of pop culture and even like Taylor Swift lyrics fills that low vibe Libra in me.
oh,
I
interesting.
think it's that because I'm not like, of course, we all have high vibe and low vibe, but I'm not a low vibe Libra. Like, I hate
Yeah,
talking
you're not a
about people.
gossipy
I
person.
don't talk about, like, I'm not that girl in
Mhm.
my real life. but the pop culture, the
It gives
Taylor
you that
Swift,
fix.
it fix it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
it
I was
gives you
like,
that
I
little
think
fix.
as I'm psychoanalyzing myself as a Capricorn rising, I'm like, let's break it down.
This is the fun
Anyway,
part of our intros, everybody. And then we're going to go talk about adrenal dysfunction in just a minute. But
we
before we do,
I was like,
before
we
we
can be
do, we
multifaceted
are
people.
multifaceted. Before we get into this conversation with Izabella, we just want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey has a bunch of beautiful spas. Here in Los Angeles, there are two, Brentwood and Culver City, all over Texas, Chicago. And you can save 20% off any of their spa services with the code CW podcast. And you can also check them out online. They carry in an online boutique, they carry all different brands, including their own hyper clean products. And again, our code CW podcast will get you 20% off your first order online. So go check them out at milkandhoney.com. And with that, shall we get to the episode?
Let's do it.
All right. So today we welcome Dr. Izabella Wentz to the show, a #1 New York Times bestselling author and author of the new book, Adrenal Transformation Protocol, a life-changing program to rebalance your adrenals and reclaim your energy and vitality. In Adrenal Transformation Protocol, readers discover a 4-week plan to release stress symptoms and go from surviving to thriving, offering a solution to those suffering from adrenal dysfunction.
Like her breakout book, Hashimoto's Protocol, this new book translates the latest in scientific research to help patients eliminate symptoms which conventional medicine has failed to address or even acknowledge. Adrenal Transformation Protocol is based on Dr. Wentz's belief that adrenal, immune, and thyroid issues develop as an adaptive mechanism to protect us in times of danger. This program is designed to make it easy to get to the root cause of your symptoms and address your healing from every angle, allowing you to feel more energetic, clear-headed, and alive each day. By shifting our lifestyle and mentality, focusing on the 4 main causes of stress: inflammation, circadian rhythm imbalances, nutritional imbalances, and psychological stress, we turn off danger signals and communicate safety messages to our bodies. So today we have a really in-depth conversation on adrenal dysfunction with Dr. Wentz sharing highlights from her book and tangible tips and tools that you can take with you after listening to this conversation. Enjoy the episode.
Before we get to today's episode, we want to tell you a little bit about the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Erica and I are both certified integrative health coaches. I have advanced training in hormone health, and she has advanced training in gut health. And we offer health coaching and corporate coaching through the Courageous Wellness Collective. We continued our education and received certification through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. IIN has taken the lead in the health coaching industry from its inception and provides a comprehensive curriculum that combines nutrition, coaching, and business.
We loved the program and have had many listeners ask us about continuing their education in nutrition, health coaching, or even just advancing their personal knowledge about food and nutrition. So we are very excited to be able to offer a discount to Courageous Wellness listeners to study at IIN. The program is completely accessible virtually with lectures led by health, wellness, and medical industry experts. To receive up to $2,500 off your tuition, you can use our names, Allie French or Erica Stein, at the time of enrollment to receive the tuition discount. We have also included a link in the show notes that will take you directly to IIN to learn more about their wonderful programs.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Izabella. Erica and I are really looking forward to having this conversation with you. And just to get us started, can you share a little bit about your personal background, a little bit about your own story and journey, and how it's led you into the world of adrenal support and functional medicine?
Sure. And it's such a pleasure to be here with you guys. Full disclosure, I was never interested in the thyroid gland or functional medicine during pharmacy school. It was really my personal health journey that got me to where I'm at today. In my 20s, I was chronically fatigued. I just was exhausted. I started with like some digestive symptoms, and then it went to I'm missing my exams. because I overslept and just needing 12 hours of sleep to feel human most days. And this really went through undergrad and even graduate school when I was in pharmacy school. And finally, when I graduated, it ended up that I had hair loss. And then I had carpal tunnel in both arms, and then a new onset anxiety. And I just felt like every other month I would have a new symptom to add to my fatigue and digestive issues. And I also, somewhere around that point when I was a practicing pharmacist, I realized like, oh, maybe not all doctors are created equally. And I was like, okay, so this doctor that I've gone to every year and said, I have these things, has been telling me like, there's nothing wrong with you. Let me see if I could get another opinion from somebody that could maybe do something else for me, right? And eventually I found somebody that tested me for Hashimoto's, and I was found to have Hashimoto's antibodies in like the 2000 range, where you want them under 35 if you don't have a thyroid issue. Generally, you want them to be like 0, 1, or 2. And I also had like an elevated TSH, which meant that I probably needed thyroid hormones, so that my own thyroid gland was not able to produce enough hormones. And part of me being a pharmacist, I was like, great, I get medications. They're going to help with everything. Because that's what I learned in school, is that if you have a thyroid issue, you take one medication and that's it, right? But then quickly I realized the medications helped me a little bit. And so I went from sleeping 12 hours to 11 hours a night, right? That's better. Still not where you want to be when you're 25 and 26, right? And then I went from wearing 2 jackets in Southern California to like 1 jacket and, maybe a light scarf. And so there were definitely some improvements, but then I was like, there's still a lot of things that are going on within my body. And the thyroid hormone only helped a little bit. And I was wondering if there's anything else I can do to get myself to feel better, to reduce the attack against my thyroid gland by my immune system. And I got into becoming this, I guess, human guinea pig / functional medicine expert with some time. And I got myself into remission from Hashimoto's and was able to thankfully get rid of all of my symptoms. Big part of my story and my journey has been changing my diet around, utilizing various nutrients to support myself. But another part of it was supporting the health of my adrenals. And really, for the longest time, I resisted addressing my adrenals because I heard it was like a bogus diagnosis and that adrenal fatigue didn't exist. And so finally, like after a few months of somebody mentioning it to me, I realized that yes, I had the symptoms. I did the testing and I utilized the recommended strategies. And holy cow, I got better. And the brain fog, the fatigue got better, my anxiety got better, and I got refreshing sleep. So it is something that I wanted to really raise the roof about and shout it from the rooftops, that this is a thing. This is something that can cause you to feel awful. And there are realistic strategies that you can utilize to start feeling really good again. And sometimes in just 3 to 4 weeks.
It's really cool, really interesting. And now you are the author of the new book, The Adrenal Transformation Protocol. So we are excited to talk about adrenals today and adrenal fatigue and all of that. But to get us started, can you break down for anyone who is new to this, or maybe I feel like adrenal fatigue was very trendy at one point, so they may have heard of it, but what actually are our adrenals? What do they control? And what are some signs of adrenal dysfunction?
Our adrenals are these tiny little glands that sit on top of our kidneys, and they produce most of our stress hormones, especially cortisol, which is probably the most relevant one for our conversation today. And really, we need cortisol. Like typically people hear, you have high cortisol, that's bad. That's part of the story, right? We actually need cortisol to live, to survive. And we need the right amount of cortisol at the right time of day. Generally in the morning, for a healthy person, they will release a bit more cortisol first thing in the morning, and that'll help them wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, have a clear mind, and be able to go about their day energetically. As the day progresses, the cortisol levels gradually drop. And so you might notice that, I'm a little bit more tired now than I was a few hours ago, to the point where at bedtime, you get tired and sleepy and you fall asleep within a short amount of time, and then you stay asleep and your body heals itself and regenerates your brain and your body throughout the nighttime, so you could wake up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the next morning. But what can happen is people sometimes get disconnected from that healthy circadian cortisol production, where they produce too much cortisol, which mainstream media loves to talk about. But people can also be on a cortisol roller coaster where they might produce too high cortisol, in the evening, and they can't fall asleep, and they might not have enough cortisol in the morning, and they can't wake up, and they might be moody throughout their day because their cortisol is fluctuating instead of gradually declining. And then another pattern that I typically see in people with chronic fatigue, with thyroid issues, fibromyalgia, is a low cortisol pattern where they just don't produce enough in the morning and throughout the day. And these are typically the people who wake up tired and they go to bed tired, and oftentimes they're in pain. And so really getting that adrenal dysfunction is when we are disconnected from a healthy circadian production of cortisol, and we feel awful. We feel wired but tired at night. We feel brain fogged and trouble waking up in the morning. We might feel moody, anxious, exhausted. Our libido might suffer. We might be in pain. We might be carrying extra weight. Typically, people say they feel overwhelmed, and everything is overwhelming for them when they're in this state.
Thank you for breaking it down. I think it's important to have these conversations where we kind of simplify certain things, because as you mentioned, there are so many sort of like buzzy kind of wellness media things. Like now it's like everybody's talking about high cortisol, or even, I know that we and you mentioned this in your book, like adrenal fatigue. Those words at one point were so sort of like common to hear, even though it's not quite a thing. It's adrenal, as you say, dysfunction, but it's intricately connected to like our HPA axis in the body. And so breaking down like what these things are in the context of the podcast in a obviously there's like a lot of complexity to it, but in a way that people can start to understand their own bodies better and the basic functions of those things, I think it can be really helpful. So could you also explain to us the HPA axis and how, just like on a basic level, like the hypothalamus works with our hormones in our body? If I know that's a hard thing to like simplify, but just if anybody's, again, just starting to understand this aspect of their own body and how it works, could you share that with us?
Absolutely. And so our brain, and so the hypothalamus, pituitary in our brain, they sense the stress, right? And they send out chemical messengers to let the rest of the body know that there's stress, right? And as these chemical messengers going down the channel, they tell the adrenal glands to produce cortisol. They're saying like, hey, adrenals, we need more cortisol. There's stress around, right? And so this is what's happening in a healthy stress response. And so you hear of people who get superhuman strength when they're being chased by bears, right? Or they're lifting up cars off of babies. And this is our brain adjusting to that stress response and telling the body, like, let's pump up some stress hormones to get ourselves through this tough time. If this, in a perfect scenario, this happens, we get our superhuman strength, and then we go on about our days, we shake it off, the threat's gone, and then we go back to like a healthy cortisol response and a healthy stress response that's aligned with the circadian rhythm. What can happen is when people undergo the stress response for too long, what's known as a chronic stress response. So it's like you're constantly sensing stress. Your brain is always perceiving stress. Sometimes it's a bear, sometimes it's just like an annoying coworker, but your body interprets it the same way, right? And then you end up getting on this disconnection between the brain, the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and the adrenal glands and the hormones they produce. I kind of think of it as like, the boy that cried wolf, where you have so much stress that your body will eventually compensate for that, and it won't release enough cortisol every single time. And it'll say like, okay, you're really telling me that there's a lot of threats going on, and I'm not going to respond every single time. There are various theories with like the desensitization of various hormone receptors or some of those pathways getting broken. But for all intents and purposes, this adrenal dysfunction state is what the body does when it's been under stress for a long time. It just doesn't respond the same way that it should be responding.
We want to take a quick break from this episode to tell you about today's sponsor, Milk and Honey. Milk and Honey is a female-founded and funded brand that began as a luxury day spa in Austin, Texas, and has since grown to include 8 locations across Texas and Los Angeles, California, as well as a line of bath, body, and skincare products born from the spa. One of Milk and Honey's best-selling products is the natural deodorant, which is loved by Zoe Kravitz and was featured in her Vogue's Beauty Secrets video. I've been using the baking soda free version exclusively for over 2-3 years. This gentle aluminum free baking soda free deodorant was designed to nourish sensitive skin while keeping you feeling and smelling fresh all day long. It never gave me any itchy red bumps when I switched over and passed the smell test even after an intense workout. It truly is the best and comes in 2 scents, lavender tea tree and lemon vanilla. In addition to clean deodorant, their online boutique also offers clean beauty products from top brands, including Osea Malibu, Virtue, Moon Juice, Kula Sun Care, Supergoop, and more. Some favorite products of mine, other than the deodorant, include Milk and Honey's Gel Cleanser, Supergoop Glow Screen and SPF 40, which I now buy on their site, and Osea's Body Oil and Vagus Nerve Oil, which activates the body's relaxation response and helps regulate stress.
Their spas are also lovely, and we are both big fans of their spa treatments. And we now offer discounts at both the online boutique and spa locations on all spa and med spa treatments. We are also thrilled to partner with Milk and Honey to offer a Courageous Wellness spa package called the Courageous Wellness Retreat at a discounted rate. The Courageous Wellness Retreat combines a 60-minute Milk and Honey signature massage, which is a Swedish massage tailored to your needs, focusing on relaxation and stress relief, combined with body brushing, an exfoliating and detoxifying treatment that uses a natural bristle brush that you get to take home to stimulate your lymph and circulation while also reviving dull skin. Courageous Wellness listeners can enjoy 20% off your next order at milkandhoney.com and 20% off your first spa service at any Milk and Honey location with code CW Podcast. Visit milkandhoneyspa.com to find a location near you. And if you want to try the Courageous Wellness Spa package offered at a special rate, use the code Courageous Wellness Retreat to redeem. This is not able to be combined with any other discount or promotion. You can also find all the information in our show notes.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to a lot of the symptoms that you're mentioning, right? As a result of these issues. And also, I think as a country, as a collective, we've been under chronic stress for at least the last 3 years. I'd say since the start of the pandemic, it's everybody's life changed drastically and quickly in some way. And some people are able to recover much quicker than others. And I'm curious because beyond just the collective stress that we've all experienced, what then do people do who are in times of chronic stress, right? Be it a sick loved one or the loss of a job. And sometimes a lot of these stressors happen back to back, right? That's just part of existing. So what do you suggest? I guess I'm asking like the second question first. I should back up, but I guess we'll just go on a journey together. But I guess the question that comes to mind first is, what can we do to support our bodies so that they are equipped to handle, I think, the tremendous stress that is from just existing in life, in 2023, truly.
Such a good point. It's like, we don't live in monasteries when we're able to meditate for 24 hours a day and be fed organic food on beautiful trays, right? And be shielded from the rest of the world. And so I feel like now I used to see adrenal dysfunction very commonly in people with chronic illness. Now I feel like you're almost a unicorn if you don't have it. And you really have to be conscious and make an effort to care for yourself. You know, as a collective, we've been through so much. And then people also have individual stressors in their lives. So a big part of that focuses on nourishing your body, and figuring out like what happens when you're in a prolonged stress response. And to give you guys a little bit of a preview, your body starts breaking itself down when you're under a lot of stress. It's called a catabolic process. Your body literally breaks itself down for fuel to fuel this stressful response. And so you end up with a lot of issues like inflammation that doesn't get fixed. You have chronic pain that kind of can go about. People will notice that they're wasting muscle, right? And things don't heal as quickly. And so the way that we shift that is we give the body some of these things that get depleted. Protein. Getting more protein into our diet is going to be a big game changer to shift from that catabolic state into more of an anabolic state where the body can fix and repair itself and build itself back up. Protein is broken down into amino acids, which are building blocks for repairing our body. And I would say, like, even if you're a couch potato, but if you're in this chronic stress state, you probably need more protein. Like your protein intake should be that of like an athlete, right? Rather than a couch potato if you're in a chronic stress state or if you have chronic illness, even if you're not getting all that physical activity, that some, you know, kind of the typical recommendations are, if you don't do a lot of physical activity, you get this amount of protein. And if you're an athlete, you should do this amount of protein. I would say most people could probably benefit, unless they have kidney disease, on that higher spectrum of protein. So that's, you know, generally 1 gram per kilogram or 1 gram per pound of weight. And I would say, you know, somewhere in there, that's where you want to be. And if you really look at the calculations, and that's per day, most people are like, holy cow, I'm really not getting enough protein. They'll have like 1 egg for breakfast. That's only 6 grams of protein. That's great if you're a toddler. Not so good if you're, you know, if you're above 30 pounds. And so we really want to focus on that, right? Just more protein, a lot of times more fat. A lot of what happens when we have this high cortisol state and fluctuating cortisol and low cortisol, there's also going to be some blood sugar fluctuations as well. So oftentimes I'll recommend more fat to keep blood sugar more stable. Fat keeps our blood sugar stable for about 4 hours. Carbs, you know, can put us on a blood sugar roller coaster. And so maybe limiting the carbohydrates, eating more fat and protein. And another great thing is, like, if you're eating the carbohydrates, make sure that you're eating protein or fat with them or some fiber, because that could actually limit the glucose peak and spike that they can produce. So that's going to be a big starting point. And then talking about the nutrients that get depleted when we're in a stress response. So I typically will focus on B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, and electrolytes. For some people, just getting those nutrients on board is a game changer for symptoms. Like magnesium is so helpful for pain in the body, for anxiety, for helping us sleep better, preventing menstrual cramps, headaches, all of these things that we find when we're stressed out. We're not sleeping, we're anxious. We are going to have cramps and pain throughout our bodies. And sometimes that's because we've burned through a lot of our magnesium.
Great suggestions. And I know with some of the Courageous Wellness listeners, you're probably like a little bit preaching to the choir, because people are probably exhausted about how much we talk about blood sugar balance, and magnesium is also my favorite mineral. But it just goes to show you breaking these things down. It's like that our bodies are, I always have to remind myself of this, and in conversation we talk about this, that our bodies are interconnected systems. It's one thing. So sometimes, like, if we can support, you know, if we just focus on our balancing our blood sugar, it's going to have so many ripple effects across our body, like, and multiple systems, like from, you know, whether we're talking about the specifically for adrenals, or we're talking about metabolic health and like long-term long-term metabolic health even, or supporting a menstrual cycle in addition to the circadian cycle, like all of these things and the things that you just broke down benefit our overall well-being in just so many ways, and how it can help even like magnesium for sleep too, and better quality sleep. I mean, it's just like it's holistic in that way, where it's really like it's all working together. And if we support it in these ways, it will have those ripple effects, and so many that you just highlighted. So what's pretty cool about your book is that you also create a 4-week plan to help people move away from some of these symptoms. Can you share with us, like, if someone is listening and is like, oh yeah, I feel super fatigued. I feel stressed out, overwhelmed, anxious. I'm not sleeping well. It's kind of like then, the ripple effect. I mean, I just did a experimental continuous glucose monitor for 10 days. And I was so fascinated by like biohacking myself and my own data. I had like one really stressful day and also happened to eat at a restaurant that night in what I thought was generally like a blood sugar balancing meal. I had some fish and green vegetables and like a teeny bit of rice. But there must have been something in the sauce too. Anyway, just like quick story. It was that one night of the time that I was doing my CGM, I was on a glucose roller coaster all night long. I mean, it was kind of shocking. And so the combination of the stress of that particular day and some of the things that were going on, plus with the whatever, like there was like mystery sugar in that restaurant sauce, and it affected my sleep. I usually sleep through the night, no problem. And I could see I probably spiked. I had not seen anything like it in 10 days. Like I probably spiked 6 times that night and my sleep was a mess. So it was just like further proof of exactly what you're talking about. But I just got to see it on an app. And so it was really fascinating. But anyway, if anybody's feeling like, oh, you're speaking to them, they're, chronically tired, maybe poor sleep, feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious, crashes in energy throughout the day. Obviously, yes, you can buy the book, but if they just are curious, like where you kind of start someone on a protocol and really how 4 weeks, which isn't that long of a period of time, can be transformative. So can you share a little bit about that? If someone's like, you're piquing their interest a little bit and like, oh, well, maybe I can make some modifications. Where would they start?
We want to take a quick break from this episode to talk about today's sponsor, Ned. If you have listened to this podcast, then you know I struggle with anxiety. When I first learned about CBD being a natural and powerful solution to anxiety, sleep disorders, muscle pain, headaches, and so much more, I became very passionate about finding the best source to put in my body. Enter Ned. Ned's full spectrum hemp oil is USDA certified organic, extracted from USDA certified organic hemp plants, grown by an independent farmer named Jonathan in Paonia, Colorado. And I use the products daily to support my anxiety, and it has been so helpful in everyday life.
These products are science-backed, nature-based solutions that offer an alternative to prescription and over-the-counter drugs. Right now, we are both really enjoying Ned's brand new product, which has been in development for over a year, the De-Stress Blend. This 1-to-1 formula of CBD and CBG is made from the world's purest full-spectrum hemp. And check out these ingredients. CBG is known as the mother of all cannabinoids because of how effective it is at combating anxiety and stress by inhibiting the reuptake of GABA, the neurotransmitter responsible for stress regulation. And ashwagandha is an amazing Ayurvedic adaptogen that enhances your body's resilience to stress. And the delicious taste of this blend is thanks to the botanical infusion of cardamom and cinnamon. Cinnamon is a powerful prebiotic that supports your gut health, a key player in your mental health. And cardamom combats stress by helping reduce your blood pressure and cortisol levels. Ned's quality also really speaks for itself. Ned's products have over 1,500 five-star reviews, and they work with incredible partners within the medical field like Dr. Caroline Leaf, Dr. Christian Gonzalez, and Dr. Will Cole, who has been a two-time guest on Courageous Wellness.
If you'd like to give Ned a try, Courageous Wellness listeners get 15% off Ned products with code CW Podcast. Visit helloned.com/CW Podcast to get access. That's HELLONED.com/CW Podcast to get 15% off. Thank you, Ned, for sponsoring the show and offering our listeners a natural remedy for some of life's most common health issues. A direct link can also be found in our show notes.
Great place to start as we talked about the blood sugar balancing diet. And I have 14 different safety signals or strategies where I really focus on letting your body know that it's safe so that you can get into that thriving state and out of that survival mode. Part of that is, good nutrition, good solid nutrition, replenishing your body with nutrients, which we already talked about. The other part of that is going to be focused on utilizing things to build your resilience. So for example, adaptogens. Adaptogens can be a really, really big game changer in how you perceive the world and how you perceive the stress. So even if you're having a stressful time period in your life, things are going to be able to bounce off of you a little bit more. So I always joke with people that you take adaptogens and everybody around you becomes less annoying, right? That's the magic of them. And they give you a little bit more resilience. So this is something that's great for most people. Adaptogens are generally going to be safe. Ashwagandha is an option. I love maca. I love holy basil or tulsi. Reishi is also an option. And the beautiful thing about them is regardless of where you are on that cortisol pattern, if you have too much cortisol or if you don't have enough cortisol, adaptogens are going to kind of work to balance it out. So if you don't have enough, they're going to lift it up. If you have too much, they're going to put it down a little bit. The only exception is licorice, which should be avoided if you have high blood pressure or high cortisol. So for a lot of people, doing that can be a really, really big needle mover for their healing journey. I typically have people start their mornings off by getting sunshine into their eyes when they're tired. This is a powerful signal to the body that it's time to wake up. A lot of us don't even realize, but we spend so much time indoors. And the lighting indoors doesn't have all of the spectrums of light that we can get when we're outside, which, our bodies have evolved to adjust to hey, this is daylight and it's time to be awake, time to produce more cortisol. And, this is nighttime and we sleep. And so getting that morning sunshine is a really big part of the program, spending time in nature whenever you can to really let your body know it's time to make cortisol throughout the day. And then later when it's dark outside, that's going to be sleepy time. And so your body gets this beautiful contrast from the lighting and the messages it receives. And then I also focus on an adrenal kickstart drink. And this is probably one of the favorites for people in the program, where even if you're not hungry in the morning, typically people that wake up tired and disoriented and have brain fog in the morning, they're going to have some low blood sugar. And you might see that on a CGM, or you might just kind of feel off, right? And some people will self-medicate with orange juice, which can be helpful for lifting that blood sugar up. But if you just drink it by itself, that can put you on a bit of a roller coaster. So you can combine a quarter of a cup of orange juice with some coconut milk, maybe another quarter cup, to give yourself some good fat to extend that cortisol spike or extend that glucose spike and flatten it a little bit. And then we would add some protein powder to that. I generally like a vanilla flavor, and then either some sea salt or electrolytes. Sea salt and electrolytes can help us improve our blood pressure and kind of balance it out when it's too low, which is something that occurs in people with morning fatigue. And this little drink, you blend it up. It tastes like an orange creamsicle. You drink that, get some sunshine, move your caffeine a little bit, and then your body starts to produce cortisol naturally in the right amounts throughout the day. And then it starts to kind of realign itself. And I just use 6 different supplements throughout the day to kind of balance things out a little bit. And I also probably one of the other parts of the protocol is that's really transformative is including a lot of pleasurable activities throughout your day.
I love these tips, and that does sound really delicious. I'm gonna absolutely try this morning potion concoction. I think I do. I've been through a really stressful season with a lot of family health stuff has been kind of nonstop over here on top of the pandemic, on top of all that came with that. So I definitely am listening and taking notes, and I'm excited. I've started your book and I can't wait to finish it because I'm definitely someone who who's going through it. Definitely. Like I feel a lot of these symptoms, and it's interesting because I do eat relatively well most of the time, but I guess I was going to ask a question for like the skeptics or even my own skeptical brain, which is so funny, but I still have this like, I'm a Capricorn rising. So there's like this intense grounding, like energy in me that questions things. But, you know, if for anyone listening who is in a really stressful season, right? And the stress isn't going to end anytime soon, is this enough, right? Like, is the power of food and the power of balancing your blood sugar and adding adaptogens, if we can't, right, like control, like the stress is still going to be a 10 out of 10, is that enough to move the needle? Or do we also have to look at figuring out ways to manage that stress level too?
So we control what we can, right? And so in the program, I have these safety signals and I talk about like, why is your body feeling overwhelmed? Where are you getting these messages? And there are some things that we can't really control, like living in a pandemic. Like, can I turn it off? Sure. Like, no, you can't, right? But you have control over turning off the news if you're finding the news is overwhelming to you, right? You have control of spending time in nature if you're feeling like you don't want to go to a party because being at a party makes you too anxious. So we go through that process where we have a really solid nutritional plan and we have a really solid supplement plan to really replenish your body and kind of bring it back into even, baseline. But then we also go through like a transformational plan and some personal growth strategies. So, there are things that many of us are doing that are adding over to that stress bucket, right? So you might be, if you're somebody that's burning the bridge at both ends and you don't have good boundaries, you're overworking yourself, that might be something that you may need to address, right? And that's something that you can control. And sometimes you can't. I developed the plan when I was a new mom for myself because some of the things weren't approachable to me. So one of the fastest ways to get into adrenal dysfunction is sleep deprivation. And if you're a new mom, you're going to have sleep deprivation unless, some babies just magically sleep, but most of them don't. And so, obviously you need sleep and sleep is so important, but that wasn't available to me. And so I thought about how do I work with what I have? And I was still able to get myself back into thriving. Thankfully, I sleep now, and I'm so grateful for that. But there are always things we can do to shift some of that stress, right? So maybe like my results are in people, the program that's in the book is based on a program that I developed in 2019. And I was going to release it in 2019, but I kept pushing it off. And then I released it in like March of 2020. And I was like, oh, great. Like, is this even going to work for anybody? Right. Because I was like targeting anxiety and all of these other symptoms. And I was like, oh my gosh, everything is improving. So we still have like a 92% of people reduce their brain fog. More than 80% of people like have less fatigue and less anxiety. And there are a lot of strategies that you can absolutely, incorporate in your day-to-day life, whether that is, doing some neurofeedback, if that's what's available to you and that's what resonates with you, or meditation to help you get a little bit more balance in your life. And I have a variety of strategies just because, not everybody likes yodeling, right? Which is a joke. I don't really recommend that, but there are a ton of different strategies that you can utilize. And maybe you can't do every single one of them. Like nobody lives a perfect life, right? Everybody has some degree of stress, whether you're in grad school or you have family issues or you have a tough job, or maybe, you just started a family. There's always something going on in our lives, and it's how we adapt to it, how we deal with it, and how we support our bodies throughout that process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of this. And as we start to wrap up, we ask our guests 3 wrap-up questions. And so I'm really interested in your answer for the first one, which is, how do you, in addition to your protocol, how do you take care of yourself? What does your daily self-care look like? And do you have any non-negotiables in your day?
I do. You can ask my husband about my non-negotiables, right? So I definitely start off my day with a lot of snuggles. I try not to jump out of bed. I spend time in nature. I do the adrenal smoothie most mornings. And I do focus a lot on making sure that I'm well nourished throughout the day. I've done a lot of things like neurofeedback in the past and, yoga, to the point where I've really balanced my nervous system. So not a lot of things get under my skin too frequently. And I always have a little bit of edge when when something does happen. I have a little bit of extra space. If something overwhelms me, then I might start doing neurofeedback again, or using adaptogens, something to that effect, where I'm like, oh, it's the holidays, we're gonna need a little bit more of this, or hey, I'm having a book launch and I have 17 radio shows back to back. Then I might do something like a bit of more adaptogens, and then really focusing on solid sleep, making sure that's a non-negotiable for me these days, because I have an older child, and a daily Epsom salt bath. So I find if I have a tough day, I'll spend 30 minutes in an Epsom salt bath and I feel so much better. If I have a really tough day, I might not come out of that bath for like an hour and a half, but that has been a really big game changer for me. And you can ask my husband about that. He's like, Izabella, when are you coming out of the bath? Like, you've been in there for so long.
Oh my gosh, that's my husband too. I'm a bath girl, and I love an Epsom salt bath, and I will stay in it forever. And I swear my puppy now will wait at the door and be like, right there, and be like, when are you coming out? Come cuddle with me. I love it. Those were great non-negotiables. The next question we always ask is, what does being courageous mean to you?
Being courageous to me means really being able to listen to yourself and listening to your gut and listening to your inner wisdom, rather than listening to what somebody else might think might be the right thing for you.
Yeah, that's great. And then the final one is, in addition to your own book, do you have a book recommendation for our audience? It can truly be on any topic, even a novel, just something that's been inspiring to you.
There's a wonderful book, and it's How to Stop Worrying and How to Start Living. It's a classic book. I believe it's by Dale Carnegie, and it's a fantastic book for helping people just, kind of get out of that worried state, that I think can be a big game changer.
Thank you. This was a wonderful conversation, and I gained so much from it, and I'm sure our audience has as well. And so if anyone wants to find you, follow you, and buy your books, where can they do all of that?
Oh, sure. So my website is thyroidpharmacist.com. And if you go to thyroidpharmacist.com/ABC, I have a guide on some of the ABCs of adrenal support. I'm on Instagram under Izabella Wentz PharmD. And then my books are on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and wherever fine books are sold.
Thank you. Thanks again, Izabella.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Courageous Wellness. Tune in every Wednesday for a new episode featuring a different guest each week.
Subscribe, rate, and write us a nice review. And you can also follow us on Instagram at Courageous Wellness, or get in touch via our website, www.courageouswellness.net, where you can also find additional info about our health coaching services, virtual group events, newsletter, and more.
Until next week, I'm Allie.
And I'm Erica, and we're Courageous Wellness.